Thanks for listening to Entre Neato, the show where we interview neat people with neat stories to help you live your neato life. Our goal is simple. It's to inspire, challenge, and empower you to achieve more in life. Whether you're considering the leap from your 9-to-5, creating side hustles, or becoming the best version of you, you've come to the right place and we're glad you're here. So let's get started. Welcome back to Entre Neato. My guest today is Viv and Tash, all the way from New Zealand. Welcome to the show.
Hi, we're happy to be here.
Thanks so much for having us, Matt.
Yeah, my pleasure. You are our first international guest, so we're super excited. And I've never had two guests on at the same time, so this is like double feature.
Yeah, we're honored.
So before we get into today's topic and kind of hear your backstory, I'd love for you all to promote away. I know you guys are podcasters and you're doing a ton on social media, Instagram, things like that. So anywhere our listeners could connect with you would be great.
Amazing. Yeah, not only can you find us at the Instagram podcast on iTunes and the rest, you could also find us at acethegram.com/entreneato, and we've actually got a few things over there for your listeners today, including like a self-assessment quiz, a list of free 20 apps and websites that we use to sort of revolutionize people's accounts, and also a little link there for a 15-minute discovery call if people are interested.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you so much. So I would love to kind of start with either one of you, whoever wants to go first, just kind of your backstory, like how you got to where you are today and just some backstory, some things that you've found in your journeys.
Yeah, totally. So Viv and I actually met at university. So that's college for you guys.
Yes.
And we we were put in the same group project we were studying food science. But we were actually working on side hustles at the same time. So I started a health and wellness account on Instagram to sort of be an asset to my degree to help me get a job. And Viv had, she can talk about her sportswear brand that she had. And then when I was graduating, I was getting more opportunities from Instagram than from my degree. And I was like, there's something in the social media thing. So went sort of full steam social media and then went all in on the business with Viv while I was overseas.
Yeah, and as Tash mentioned, so I created a small sportswear brand while I was still at uni or college. Mm-hmm. And from there, Tash and I, like she said, same group project, working on the same things. I got to the stage where I was actually driving the majority of web traffic from Instagram to my website. So that's what sort of sold me and helped me to sell others on the powers of Instagram. And sort of a bit later on, so became Ace the Gram as people started to ask us a little bit more about how they could get the same results that we were getting.
Oh, that's so cool. So I love the name of the podcast. I love that you're podcasters as well. There's just like kindred spirits there, which is great. I always love when I meet new podcasters and get to know, because you go through a lot. You're trying to get your show and get reviews and get the word out there. So we're happy to promote it. And it's funny because we've had a couple of Instagram pros on before, and Instagram is so crazy because it's accessible to so many people, and anybody can create an account, things like that. And there's a lot of garbage. There's a lot of just gimmicks and things like that with Instagram. And so I've been excited today because I need to learn more about it. So kind of backstory on me: I'm 38, married with 2 kids, and I remember, I don't know what year it was like 2004, and I thought I didn't have a text messaging kind of program or any kind of thing that I was paying for. And I just thought, I don't know, is text messaging going to stick around? And I immediately felt like I was like 75 years old. And I felt like this old curmudgeon that was just like, stuck in his old ways. And of course, text messaging, it's incredible. It changes the world, things like that. And so I go back to that, the old me of like, I don't know if this is going to be around for a while. And so whenever there's something new, and I know Instagram is not new at all, but as far as learning, how do you generate traffic? How do you create a brand? How do you create something for your business that can drive people to your website to make orders, to learn more about you, things like that, to help spread the word? So I would love to learn more because I know a little bit. I know some basics and things like that, but I'm not nearly as proficient as you all. And I know there's many of our listeners too that are just getting started from the 9-to-5. They have an idea. They're like, tell us how to expand our brand. Tell us how to get the word out on a great service or product that we have to offer. So I'm excited today to learn about it because I'm teachable. I want to learn more about this, how I can apply it. And I know our listeners are feeling the same way. So to kind of go into our topic today, we're going to be talking about 5 real world tips to building a powerful, engaged audience on Instagram. And I love the title 5 real world tips because I think there's a lot of gimmicks sometimes. There's these things, we'll just do 100 hashtags and things like that and try this and just do a ton of posts. I would love to get your input on that and how we can kind of take it to the next level with our Instagram game.
Yeah, 100%. So I think the first of the 5 would definitely be everything starts with content on Instagram. It is primarily a visual platform, so the content that you post is so important. So we often say to figure out your core intention of why you're using Instagram. So, and then figuring out your target audience from that. And the thing with the content that you put out there is that you want it to be providing value to that target audience. So every post that you do, you want to think, if I was on my feed and I was scrolling down and I saw this post and I was my target audience, would this provide value to my life? Would I want to follow this account? Like, if you've got to think in your mind, would you follow your own account if you weren't yourself? So that's what comes first, and creating content for that does provide value. It might be either it's like aesthetic inspiration, it's humorous, it's educational, like figuring out where you sit within that, and then either creating that content yourself if you have the skills, or just outsourcing that. We see a lot of people afraid to outsource content, but it's one of the biggest things that makes a huge visual difference. So it's like a really good thing to prioritize.
Sure.
When you are creating that content and you are sort of beginning, or you're stuck, perhaps your engagement has slowed or it's declined, get on the app either on Apple or on desktop. It's called Top 9, and plug in the usernames of a few competitors there that you see still to be doing really well. And that app will give you the top 9 engaged photos from their account so far. And what that's going to give you is an idea of what your target audience likes to see. So you can do that across 5 to 10 competitors' accounts, and then bring that information back and kind of incorporate that into how you present content to your audience.
Yeah, totally. A bit of a shortcut and seeing what actually resonates with your audience. Number 2 is how you engage with your audience. So there's a bit of a misconception on Instagram that if you post nice content consistently, then you'll grow. That kind of used to be the case in the past, but now no one really finds you in Instagram space. You have to have quite an aggressive strategy to go out and get your followers and sort of show them that you exist for them to come and like and follow your profile. So we suggest as an engagement strategy, we'll go to each person, we'll go to a competitor who's doing quite a good job, or even go to an influencer in your same niche or target market, and then on that influencer or brand's latest post, like and comment and engage with the people that have commented on their post, because that is basically your target audience, and it's a way to get in front of them. They're going to be, if you're scrolling your feed and you've got a normal Instagram, you're going to be far more likely to check someone's account out if they've engaged with you first. It's a bit of a reciprocal thing on Instagram. So it's engagement, and getting a following is directly how much work you put in is how much work you put out, and then that will snowball as you get more of a following.
That's really interesting. So as far as engagement goes, is there like a good number that you all say? Do you like post 3 times a day, once a day, every other day? Do you have like a strategy or some thoughts that's worked for you guys?
Yeah, so it does depend on your niche. So if you're, say, posting quotes and people want to see multiple quotes in a day, then we suggest about 3 times a day. But if you're a small business or brand or aspiring influencer, we say once a day is fine, especially as the algorithms changed and it's now more about how you use the platform, like as in having a story up every day is more important now than having a post up. So we suggest like 5 to 7 times a week, main post, but at least 1 or 3 stories every single day.
Okay. My perspective is that like if I'm following somebody and I see 25 little hashtags, little, dashes at the top of the story, I was like, man, this is a lot of content. I don't know if I get through them all. I'll just, because I want to like kind of check this invisible box, I'm like, okay, let me just skip through them all. But then I feel committed if there's somebody that I'm close to that I'm like, okay, I can't just like, you know what I mean? Like I can't just not see the first 4 stories and then the last 4 stories. I'm just like, okay, I'm skipping it. Like I feel bad. So I want to look at all of them and be like, I looked at all of your stories today to let them know that I saw them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And that's, in regards to stories, and often, people sometimes can overdo them. So there's nothing stopping you from recording, like lengthier stories and then keeping that on your camera roll for a different day, or using an app like Cut Story to then cut up a longer video to upload to your story later on. Just so you're right, like it is overwhelming if there are 20 little pinpointed dots along there and people are just going to swipe past. So I like what Tash is saying about, 1 to 3 stories per day. That's a really nice number. And it's digestible for your audience as well. It's not overwhelming.
Sure. Is there, as far as content, and I want to get to all these, this is really good. This is really helpful. As far as content, do you ask yourself, like, I love self-talk. So do you ask yourself questions, or do you kind of filter that? Like, okay, is this going to be engaging, educational, entertaining? Is this, what kind of questions do you filter? Maybe you've already got a part for that, but I was just curious.
Yeah, so we have different content pillars that we know perform well. So when we start out an Instagram account, we kind of think of the attention of the account, and then we come up with, say, 5 content pillars. So if I'm the health and wellness account, there might be food, a quote, lifestyle images, and other wellness shots. And then I'll split test those. So I'll post those for a while, cool. And then whatever those 5 content pillars are doing the best, then I'll double down on about 3, and then I'll split those up in the ratio. And if you're a brand, that you do have to take into account that when you're doing more promotional posts about your company, they will probably not perform as well, but they are still important if you do it in a really organic way. So sometimes it's not all about engagement, it's also about what your intention of having the platform is. So you post high performing content, but then you also post things that will move your business.
Okay, that's super helpful. So number 1 was content. Number 2, value, or was it engagement?
Engaging with your audience.
Okay, yeah. Engaging with your audience. Okay, because you talked about value too, and I was like, I just wrote that down. I made number 6. I'm sorry.
I get excited about everything.
That's great. I was like, that's good. I'm just taking a bunch of notes. Okay, so engaging with your audience, and then what would come next?
Well, the third thing we want to talk about, Matt, is actually utilizing stories. So to carry on from what we have briefly talked about, is not only not overwhelming your audience, but still being present. So using those 1 to 3 stories per day, but also think about including some massive hashtags in your stories. You can just write those in the text function and then squeeze them a little bit smaller if you've got like 15 in there. No one's really doing it at the moment. So if you can do a story, like a video or a photo, put a big hashtag in there, and by big I mean ones with lots of posts. So if it was like hashtag food, for example, would be a hashtag that would have millions of posts in that feed, but people are underutilizing that feature at the moment. So if I had only say 5,000 followers and I use hashtag food in a normal post, there's probably a really low chance of me hitting the top posts in the main feed. But if I do that in a story, that's a real loophole at the moment to actually get you into that top feed, that featured feed up there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it doesn't compare. So like if you do just the standard post, you've got the hashtags, you're going to have like 1.5 million posts or something on food. But if you do it through a story, it actually has a better rate. I didn't know that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, 100%. And same with location tags. So if you tagged New York, for example, on a normal feed post, then you're probably not going to make the top hashtag for New York. But if you do it on stories, then there's like a far higher chance that someone clicking through the New York location tag, you might actually show up there and drive a bit of traffic to your profile. It's also quite good for the algorithm to understand who you're trying to target. So if you're from New York and you want to target New York people, then consistently using New York in your stories and your location tag in your post is a really good way to tell Instagram who you want to be targeting.
Okay.
Yeah, and then in stories as well, stories that are engaging do statistically better. So if you have the question function that you can now use, or if you have like polls and ways that your audience can actually interact and reply, then that's really powerful, and Instagram loves that. And then that's sort of how you climb the ranks of getting shown further and further forward in someone's stories line up when they go on their main feed, and there's those top stories that are at the top of your screen, because we always say top of screen, top of mind. So that's the golden spot. That's where you want to be. Next is utilizing captions.
Yeah, so one thing we've watched over the past few years with Instagram is, 2 years ago you could say happy Monday or just leave a few emojis in the caption, and that would be fine. You just had to post your post at the right time, and there's not too much competition, so you do okay. Now what we're seeing, in particular for influencers and now more so for brands too, is actually the depth of the caption and the not only does the content have to evoke emotion, but if the caption can do the same and either explain about your product, or maybe like Tash mentioned earlier, if you're going for comedy, then if it relates to funny quotes or memes that you're posting, how is your caption engaging the audience as much as your content is itself? And then on top of that, are you using call to action? So instead of just saying happy Monday, are you saying I'll give a better example. Instead of say like Monday lunch, ask your audience, where's your favorite place to eat on a Monday in, X location? Or ask them a question, say double tap if you like how this happens, or, ask them to actually do what you want them to do, click the link in your bio and so on, so that it's more engaging and you're talking directly to your audience as if they were standing in front of you rather than kind of just speaking out into space.
Yeah. And that's also quite good for the algorithm as well, in the way of the longer that someone spends on your post, the better that Instagram thinks that your post is doing. So we're seeing a lot of people now with like a bit of a title. It's like a baby blog post when they post their photo, they see a little title, and then the rest of the post is underneath, but the title kind of captures your attention, and then you start reading, and then you want to read more, so you'll click like read more. And I think that's quite well.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I always find that I'm kind of scanning, so I'm going to scan through, and if I see someone that has like a whole novel underneath there, for me personally, I usually will skip it or something like that. But I know that there's people out there that they're like voracious readers. They love to read. They love the content, and that's their favorite medium to kind of process everything. So for me, I'm not like the average maybe Instagram follower in the sense of that. But if it's like a funny one-liner or something that's like gripping, like you said earlier, that's going to suck me in to kind of read more and see, okay, what was this about? Or if the image is so interesting or shocking or whatever, that's where I'm like, okay, I got to hear what is this about? What's happening here?
Yeah, totally. And I think as well, we're all about having a really loyal following that's kind of your super fans, as opposed to casting the net wide and getting like a big following of people that don't really care. Yeah. And I think if it was someone that you was super passionate about and they posted like quite a long engaging post, you might be more inclined to read it. We just find that the people that do connect with the audience on that deeper level have a far more engaged and like powerful audience, because they're really invested behind the person or the brand.
And with that being said, Matt, I get what you're saying as well. I think it just depends often on like the target audience, right? So I follow an account like Kook Slams, and their captions are so funny, and they just like fill it up with like these hilarious hashtags and so on. Yeah. And so it's just do you follow that account too?
I don't. I need to though.
Yeah, you've got to follow the account. Hilarious. But it just depends on the account, and it just the changes that we are seeing. But by all means, if it is coming in with humor or gripping captions, then by all means do that.
Yeah. Oh, that's very good. Okay, that's super helpful. So what else are we missing? Is there anything else to this?
Yeah, the last thing we wanted to talk about was actually utilizing the link in your bio. So even if you are building a personal brand as an influencer or your own brand, how can you give value in that link in your bio? So whether that be giving away something for free, like a lead magnet, rather than just trying to push people straight to your website, especially if your product costs a little bit more. How are you utilizing that link in your bio, and then tie that in with your captions and say, hey, if you want to grab my free ebook, make sure you click the link in my bio. On top of that, if you are a personal brand, then I guarantee there are still ways that you can be providing value in that link in your bio, whether that is again, free lead magnets and so on. The main thing there is that you are referring to it often, and you are kind of giving value, because often, yes, it's good to put your website in, but again, people only care about what you can do for them, right? So
right.
Make sure it's something that appeals to your audience.
That's super helpful. So we're almost at time, but I kind of a final question I had, and then I want to get your final thoughts on this, but it's kind of loaded, but I think, what would you say to someone? So if you talk about entrepreneurs, things like that, entrepreneurs, they don't see excuses. And that's, I think, one of the main differences, that the average person that doesn't feel called or feel stirred to be an entrepreneur, they are just going to make excuses like, I don't have enough money, or what if it's successful, or what if I fail, or this and that. So all these excuses at times, and it allows them to be stuck. So with social media marketing, with Instagram, things like that, what would you say to somebody that's like, well, there's so many accounts and there's so many posts and so many other people. Why would someone want to see that I'm eating salmon on my salad, on Tuesday? Or why would somebody want to see like that? Like, what have you found with that? Like, what do you say to that person that maybe is making an excuse that I can't post, or I don't want to post that much, or no one's interested in what I'm saying? Like, what are some information that you found about it?
even though it's getting saturated, it might be harder to grow at the moment on platforms like Instagram. Just get started. I think it's the same with business, right? Like some people just keep talking about it and never actually get started. You know, it's like when you say, when's the best time to plant a tree, you know, like 10 years ago, just get started. Even if we look at Instagram specifically at the moment, you still have equal chance of being shown to a user as much as their best friend, which is we're just not seeing that on other social platforms at the moment. So especially with Instagram, get started, because in 3 years' time, if they decide to go pay to play like Facebook and, you know, penalize your posting as a business account, you'll regret not starting now. So if you do take one thing away, just get started would be my advice.
And I'd say you're actually in an advantage these days, because Instagram used to do really well if you had a massive account, so those millions of followers and those huge accounts. Now we're seeing a massive rise in the small accounts and the micro influencer, because Instagram has doubled down on the fact that they want to provide the best user experience for the average user. So they're actually pushing those accounts, and their engagement is way higher, and they're getting shown to so many people, rather than those huge multi accounts. So I think there's actually no time that's better to start than now, because you do actually have a really good chance.
That's a great point. I never thought about that. If they do cause you and start charging you for advertising, it's like free advertising right now. That's actually those are great points. That really does help, because part of me is that I've thought that before. I've thought like, well, geez, who cares? And does somebody really want to see this? And then you'll get a story, you know, I'll do a story or something, and somebody thinks it's funny, and they're like, you should have your own TV show. And I'm thinking, and then you know that they're referring to that, and you're like, are you serious? Like, this was funny to you, or you thought that was interesting? It's just amazing. Sometimes I think like this is going to be really great, and sometimes it turns out good, and then sometimes I'm thinking this is so dumb, but I'm just going to record it anyways. And then they're like, that's hilarious. I'm like, you seriously laugh at this stuff like this? You know, so it's sometimes more confusing and of what people want, you know, but it's a fun experiment for sure. So what are some kind of closing thoughts, and maybe a closing thought that you all had for the listeners? Like, what's the next step they could take, or, you know, go to the next level with their Instagram presence?
Yeah, I would start with just what Viv said, and just get started, and just start to prioritize it and make it part of the way that you spend your day, in the way of making it a first thought to upload a story when you're doing something relevant, or just get started. And then I would also find some goal accounts. So just go on Instagram, find someone in the same niche as you that you think is doing a really good job, and then just emulate some of the things that they're doing, because you don't need to reinvent the wheel when it comes to Instagram. Just figure out what's working and then put your own spin on it, and it's always going to come out as an authentic you version of whatever they're doing. So I would say, just get started and follow all the tried and true methods of how to actually utilize Instagram well.
Just to recap what we've talked about earlier, so first, start with content. What's your value? What are your intentions for your account? Follow that up with engaging with your audience. So not only are you providing that value, but make sure you get out there and find your audience so that they can see the value that you're providing. And then on top of that, utilize stories. Use those location tags and hashtags within the stories. Take advantage of that loophole that's happening right now. Not only that, but use your captions well. So think about how you can evoke more emotion, get more, engagement with your captions, ask people to do things using call to actions and so on, and also utilizing that link in your bio. So whether that is giving away something for free or directing them to something that will actually benefit your user or audience, that's where you're going to start to see some success.
That's so great. Well, this has been super helpful. One more time before we go, can you just plug away any social media, your podcast, websites, anything like that?
Yeah, awesome. So not only can you find us on the Ace the Gram podcast, we're on Spotify and iTunes and a few other places. I think Stitcher for Android is right. And we are also at acethegram.com/Entreneato, and we've got a few freebies there for you guys today.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for waking up super early. I know it's about 7 a.m. there in New Zealand, and it's about 2:30 in the afternoon here. So thank you so much for getting up and making this happen. Take some time for us today.
No worries. It's been really fun. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
We so appreciate you joining us for this week's episode. As a thank you for listening to the show, head over to entreneato.com to download your free audiobook, thanks to our friends at Audible. While on our website, you can purchase your very own official, super comfortable, super trendy Neato t-shirt. Looking to take your life and business to the next level? Click the Join Our Mastermind at the top of the screen. Have a question or comment for the show? Click Contact to message us. And finally, don't forget to subscribe to our show to stay current with all the amazing interviews from our guests. Now take what you've learned, apply it, and start living your Neato life now.